Hello, humans. I am your host, Bradley Martin, and this is Clearing the Way, a resource for small business. I talk with sales and HR experts, other small business owners, and anyone else that can provide you and me with information to clear our way to success. My guest today is Maria Patterson, owner of Fussy Revival Boutique. Was opened in February of 2021 as an online clothing store dedicated to helping women find confidence in themselves. They've had several successful pop-up events, and in May, we'll be moving into a brick-and-mortar location, so that's super exciting. Maria, thank you for being a guest on Clearing the Way.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your upbringing to start and figure out how the hell we got to the point where you have an online store and now you're going to be moving into brick and mortar. That's pretty exciting. So take me through, did you grow up around here?
I didn't.
Okay.
So I grew up out west. I grew up in Arizona, and then my stepdad was in the military. So we transferred to Colorado in my preteen years. So I went to high school and everything in Colorado. And then I ended up going to college in Texas, which is kind of where I found my love for boutiques.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so you in Arizona, where at in Arizona?
Tucson.
Okay.
Yep.
And you were there till 14?
I was there till 11, 12. Yep.
Okay.
But my whole family is still there. So that's home.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So father in the military,
Mm-hmm.
did you have any, what kind of student were you? I guess let's start there.
I was a terrible student.
Okay.
To be honest,
Okay.
I was really involved in sports. I was really involved in extracurriculars, anything you could do.
What activities?
So I played rugby, I swam, and I played soccer and softball.
Oh, okay.
And then I was in the FFA. Pretty much anything I could get my hands on in school that was not in the classroom.
Okay.
I loved speaking events. I showed animals, everything, but I hated the classroom.
Okay. What about it did you not like?
Well, to be honest, I felt like I just wasn't very intelligent, like when it came to book smarts. So everything was really hard for me. But I loved the social aspect of school.
Did the other activities that you were you were involved in a ton of other activities.
Mm-hmm.
Did those come naturally or were you just more interested in them?
More interested, and I had the drive. I always wanted to be the best. So it was really easy for me to kind of fit in those places because I always had that drive. But I just did not have the drive for academics.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. And was that kind of carried, like that was always the case? No.
In a sense, when I got to college, obviously paying for school, and I paid for school myself, I started to take it way more serious. And I realized I was more intelligent than I gave myself credit for. And I utilized a lot of things that I learned from all those outside extracurriculars to kind of help me in the classroom.
Okay, so you were finally, so once you figured out how to actually focus on the things, then it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Were there...
And self-discipline. I mean, honestly, doing things that I didn't like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, well, that doesn't feel that uncommon. Like, it's so hard to get kids to pay attention. Like, if you're not interested in so it's a couple, if you're not interested in the topics, that's one thing. And then if the teachers are teaching in a way that isn't suitable for you, it's like, well, how the hell am I going to focus on this stuff?
I felt like I was such an angry child. So, these teachers, I was kind of that child that none of the teachers really wanted to deal with.
Okay.
And so I'm sorry if you're listening and you were my teacher. And I really do apologize because looking back, I wish that I would have taken the time. And I think we all go through that. We look back and we're like, oh, there are certain things that, I wish I had taken that a little more serious. But yeah, I think once I got to college and realized that I kind of had to put in some extra work, it was coming out of my pocket, it kind of all clicked. And so I started to take school more serious, but that's kind of where I ended up in retail, actually.
Okay, what did you go to school for?
Agriculture communications and agriculture education. So I studied ag science.
Okay, and what was the plan there?
I actually wanted to go into international agriculture. I wanted to travel the world and kind of represent the United States and the agriculture industry with trade and things like that.
Okay. Where the hell did that go?
And I also, teaching high school with the ag ed degree, I loved the ag program in school. That's kind of the only reason I think I graduated, is that pushed me. And it was something I was interested in, obviously.
Huh. Okay. So where did that interest come from?
I grew up just around animals. I grew up in 4-H, and then I did ag in high school, so FFA. And that's just where that passion came from. I loved the leadership aspect of it. I think 4-H and FFA really, really mold kids to have that passion for something, whether it be leadership or animals. There's just so much more to that, those organizations, than just farming.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And was that something your parents pushed? Like, were they into
So
that?
my mom was, and yeah, they were in the ag industry, but not heavy. And it wasn't anything they pushed. Honestly, it was something they weren't interested in really at all. I don't think, like the speaking aspect of things and stuff like that. Not at all.
Huh.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So man, that's interesting. Okay. So you go to school for that.
Mm-hmm.
Out of school, what did you pursue that at all, or what did you?
So actually, I was 2 semesters away from graduating. I was putting myself through school. I was working full time for a very well-known retail company that I had worked for forever. I was burnt out, and my husband and I reconnected. We had known each other as teenagers. We reconnected, and I actually ended up moving here and transferred with my company for him.
Okay.
I transferred with the company I was working with, retail, and stuck with them up until I had my daughter. So when that happened, we actually had bought my husband's dream business here in Washington, which is in the ag industry. And so I ended up becoming a work from home mom and help him kind of grow his dream business. Which it's in the meat industry. I studied nothing about meat. I was in the ag industry, so I knew how to market it. I didn't know anything else. I couldn't tell you the difference of a T-bone and filet. So that was a growing curve as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So what were you doing in retail?
Clothes. So I was I worked for Buckle. I was in sales, and I had been in management for a while. And I loved the goal of that company, but I just always felt it was just so unorganic for me.
In what do you mean by that?
I think that corporate sales is just so different than small business. And that was something I clicked in when we started our first business.
What was that?
When my husband and I started Pennsylvania Packing House, when we bought Pennsylvania Packing House, I started to just find this passion for small business. And I knew I always loved sales, but realizing why I didn't fit in corporate sales, and because I am so passion driven, that's kind of what sparked that. And I realized, okay, my dream of owning a boutique wasn't just a dream, that could be a reality.
So earlier you mentioned when your love for the boutiques, that was in college down in Texas, right? So what about that? Okay, so one is, what introduced you to that? Where did you discover that? And then what led to that passion for those?
Well, first off, I love shopping. So going in and finding these little shops, but there was so much character in them. So I went to junior college originally in Brenham, Texas, and they had the cutest little boutiques downtown. And I remember walking in, and it was so fun. You could walk in, and it was just, there's so much character everywhere. And how you felt buying one piece of clothing from the way they made you feel, the experience. And then, they do Antique Week down in Warrenton, Texas, and all these boutiques get together. And I remember being like, I loved the style. I loved the loud colors. And obviously I'm involved in the Western world, so a lot of them are Western boutiques. And I was just like, I was rocking. That is my environment. So that was kind of where I first discovered boutiques. I had seen them online, but to experience it was cool. And obviously then I didn't have the money to shop for in boutiques and stuff. But like I said, I had been involved in retail, and then So I kind of got like the sales side of retail from corporate retail, but just going into those boutiques, it felt so cool.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so so you decide not to finish
Yep.
your degree.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any like all of the agriculture stuff had been such a big part of
Mm-hmm.
you up to that point? Was there any how was that decision made? Like that's
Honestly,
kind of a
it was
big
made, I think finances were a huge part.
Mhm.
I didn't have support financially, and to be working a full-time job and taking 21 credits. And at this point, I had transferred to a major university, and it was hard. I was trying to balance a work life, school life,
Mhm.
a social life, and like I said, my husband and I had reconnected. We were actually introduced by one of his cousins. So when he reached out to me, we just hit it off. We actually met up in DC, and it was one of those things where like you just, you found your person, and I had known him for years, and it just was like, okay. And I remember so much backlash from everybody, are you giving up your dream? Are you this? And I think what everybody didn't see behind the scenes was the struggle that I was putting into school. I mean,
Yeah.
I still wasn't the smartest kid in the room. So the amount of work I was putting in, but also, I mean, working a full-time job while going to school full-time,
It's a lot.
it's a
It's a
lot.
lot.
It's a lot. And so there was times where I felt like, okay, did I give up? Did I quit?
Uh-huh.
And I think those really manifested, especially, when my husband, we bought his dream business and started going, and I kept thinking like, did I give up? What could I be doing to, benefit my family,
Uh-huh.
or if I would have finished? And the reality was, I was looking at it all wrong. Truth be told, I was, looking at all these things like, oh, did I quit this? Instead of looking at the opportunities that it gave me. And also, I think the lessons you learn, college is so much more than what you learn in the classroom.
Yeah.
And I really grew as an adult, kind of being thrown out there like that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of the things you learned there were super helpful for whenever you guys were taking over
Yeah.
that business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So obviously not a well, how was that like how quickly were you able to kind of work through that?
Oh, quick. Okay,
Okay.
so I am like a total fly by the seat of my pants. I feel like once I make a decision, I've made a decision.
Okay.
And I'm also
that's a wonderful trait to have.
yeah. So for me, it was like, we met up in DC, and he had talked about possibly moving to Texas. And obviously I was struggling, in school and just working. And I was like, screw it. Let's try something new. I said, I'm going to move there. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, why not? I said, I'll keep my apartment in Lubbock for 7 months. I have my lease till August. And I said, I can transfer with my company. And I actually remember going to my boss, who, shout out to him, he was a big asshole. And he was just, and I think anybody who worked with me could agree, but just like very demeaning. And he taught me a lot, but at the same time, I think he beat me down as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember going to him and being like, hey, actually, I already called up, and one of my managers had helped me, but I had called up the manager out here in Morgantown, and I was automatically on the phone. She was like, yeah, I want you here. Let's talk. And I want to make you assistant manager. So it ended up working out. And really, I was kind of like, if this doesn't work out, I mean, I have my apartment back there and I have a good job. So we're good.
Yeah. Okay.
I think for me, I had my mindset, and like I said, making decisions, making sure you have all your bases covered, and then going for it.
Yeah.
I think there were so many times in my life that you come to a cross in life and you're like, okay, where am I going to go with this? And you can go right, you can go left, and just weighing out your options. But the longer that you take to make a decision, I think is where you kind of screw up.
Yeah, well, you can get that like paralysis by analysis.
Oh,
like that. I end up getting into that.
Yeah.
That like you spend all the time doing research, and it's like, well, you're super planned for this thing, but then you never do the thing.
Yeah.
Because you've just spent the whole time planning for either scenario. It's like, well, just get to a point where you're confident that it's not going to be a complete disaster, and then do something.
100%.
And then you can learn along the way. Keep planning while you're doing it or whatever. But okay, so you move back here.
Mm-hmm.
You're still in retail.
Yep.
At what point did you decide? Okay, so were you find this love for these boutiques?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever at that point had you considered having your own thing?
I mean, it was definitely like I would love to have this someday.
Mm-hmm.
It was that kind of thought. I would love to do this.
Yeah.
But I mean, at that point in my life, it was not even anything that I could be like, hey, this is, I want to do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
It was kind of like one of those things like, oh, this would be so cool. Like a dream.
Yeah.
A true dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did that start to become less of this like, oh, if only, and now it's this, like, when did it start to become tangible?
Okay. So, I had left retail. I had had my daughter. We had bought Pennsylvania Packing House, and I'd been thinking about it still. And I mean, I'd even talked to my mother-in-law and said, like, this is a dream one day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I'd had my daughter, and I think, so she's almost 5. So she was 2 or 3. And the business was going, and it was just after the pandemic. And I was like, okay, I'm losing my fucking mind.
Mm.
Like, I am a go, go, go kind of girl. And it was to the point, like, my husband didn't really need me at the shop every day.
Uh-huh.
Being home with my daughter is awesome, but I felt like I was kind of losing my mind.
Uh-huh.
And so and I suffer from extreme anxiety. And that had really manifested itself after having my daughter. Looking back, I've had it forever, obviously. And so I was getting to the point where seasonal depression was just at an all-time high. And so I actually one day just sat down and started researching everything that I needed, licensing, anything like that, my overall cost. And so 9 hours later, my husband came home from work, and I said, just so you know, I applied for my business license. I have, I'm thinking of a name, I said, and he was like, okay,
what
cool.
happened today?
Well, yeah, he was just like, okay, cool. I mean, he had known that this is something I wanted to do, and him and I are very much the same. Like, if you want to do it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made it happen. I was so tired of feeling that way. And it had been something I had wanted for so long. And I don't know if you've heard the quote that along the lines of the only difference there's people out there that are less qualified than you doing what you want, but they decided to go for it. So I had read that, I want to say like a week before. And I was like, shit. You know what? And I was watching all these girls do all this, and I was like, I can do that. Like, I know that in me, I have that. And so just like moving here, I was like, screw it. We're going to do it. And I committed one day to it. And a month and a half later, I had my first job.
Okay.
I built my own website. I mean, no, I had very little experience in that.
Well, what's nice right now is that you can make that decision, and generally you can do pretty decent with everything by yourself.
Yeah.
And like it feels super overwhelming. I'm sure that day was like, there's a lot of shit that you're doing, but if you just figure out what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And then, you have the internet.
Make a list.
Yeah.
Literally get on the internet and make a list.
Yeah.
I was just talking to someone over Christmas break, actually, and him and I were talking, and it's an older gentleman, and he said, I think it's so great that a woman can be anything she wants to be now. You can figure it all out on the internet. And I'm like, you really can. And that goes for anybody, but 100%. I got on the internet. I Googled, Pennsylvania is really easy. They give you a list of everything you need. It takes like 2 hours to fill out the paperwork, and bing, bang, boom. You can be a legitimate business. Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know how to do any of this shit.
Yeah.
This is all just learning on the internet, YouTube University.
Yep.
But that's cool. Okay, so you devote a day to this.
Yes.
Okay, so that morning, was this like you start Googling and then you get into this rhythm and it's like, oh, I'm doing all this today? Or did you wake up and you're like, I'm making this happen today?
No, I kind of got up and was like, I'm going to look into this. And then when I realized how easy it was, I was like, I'm going to finish this today.
Okay.
And so by the time we got home, and then it took a couple weeks, I had a friend that I had been messaging back and forth, and I mean, life, like I said, I'd just been dealing with extreme anxiety, things, with family and stuff. And she was like, okay, whatever your boutique name entails, it needs to have Fussy in it. And I was like, I love that. And so a couple days later, it was like Fussy Revival. And because I just felt like this is like my Fussy comeback. Like I have accomplished so much with very little help or support. And in the past, and just seeing where I came from, because I mean, honestly, the childhood I had, I was taught to have confidence, but I don't feel like I was ever encouraged to do it all. And so coming from where I came from and then to being where I am now, that just having that Fussy Revival come through was big.
Yeah.
And so that's where it all came from. One day, sitting there on my computer at home, and I'm pretty sure my kid watched more Mickey Mouse than ever that day, and we just went for it.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Okay.
And having a husband that just came home and was like, all right, cool.
What?
I mean, for him to believe in me like that was huge, because I know that so many women wouldn't have that option.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I did not talk to him that whole day. He was like, are you good?
So that's pretty exciting. So how quick, okay, so you said like a month and a half later, you have your first drop.
Mm-hmm.
How did you figure out, did you know how you were going to make it happen? So, okay, so like the legality of it, all of those types of things, like that's its own thing. But prior to that day, had you done any research into how to actually make that as a business? Or
okay, so obviously, like I had seen different things on the internet, all these boutiques, different vendors they use and whatever. And I'd been shopping boutiques for so long at this point. I felt pretty knowledgeable about vendors and stuff. But there's actually a resource called the Boutique Hub. And they have things like the Boutique Summit, which is a huge convention that you can go to. But they also have different little classes you can take. They have different like papers you can print. They have planners you can buy. So all of these things. So I really utilized the Boutique Hub. And at the time, like, it was an extra expense added to this business that I was like, and it ended up really helping me. So that's how I found most of my vendors.
That's so. Summer was on she was on Friday. Her episode comes out to Wednesday. It comes out Wednesday, but she has a flower farm. She said the exact same thing.
I know her.
Yeah. But the exact same thing where like early on she pays for this resource that's like questionable of like, okay, is this actually worth it? And same deal, like, it saves you so much time in actually figuring out how to do it. Somebody else already done these things.
Yep.
Like,
and they're there to coach you. I mean, so the owner of the Boutique Hub is Ashley Alderson, and she is just a boutique genius. And she has a lot of connections to the Western world. So it's utilizing your resources. I mean, like you said earlier, you can find anything on the internet. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Well, and if you have the ability to pay for some of the, like, figure out where you need to spend the money. But I mean, in a lot of cases, like spending the money on your education early, like education for the business.
Yeah.
I mean, in that case, I'm sure that resource saved you countless hours of actually figuring out how to do all of those things on your own.
Well, and it kind of set me apart because I wasn't using these vendors that everyone else just finds on the internet or whatever. I mean, if I try to Google even now, like, Western fashion wholesalers, very little comes up. So it was utilizing that to kind of get me started. I found as I kept going, I think her classes and those resources were really helpful. So the rest I could kind of push out.
Yeah.
But she also has a podcast that I listen to weekly. And that has given me a lot of inside advice too, because I think as a business owner, the most important thing you can do is continue learning. So just always utilizing those resources. I mean, I don't know it all, and I'm never going to know it all. And there's people that have been in business for 15 years that are still learning as well. But they're also kind of it gives you the chance to jump over some hurdles or obstacles by paying attention to what other people have done.
Yeah. There's no need for you to make the same mistake as others, especially if they're talking about it and giving the information out.
100%. And I think something I found in the boutique community is because there's women from all over the United States. They actually have women all over the world. But it is a community, like community over competition. And I think that goes for any business. Everybody's on a different level. So instead of looking at, this person's starting up a business and they're my competition, well, no, you're your own competition. Everybody has, and that's where kind of branding your business comes in.
Yeah. And there's plenty of, there's only a certain amount of slices of the pie. It's like, that pie is massive. Like, there's plenty of people that are looking for these things.
What do you bring to that pie? Yeah. And that's my thing. Looking at what you bring to the table. And like I said, I think the most important thing I've learned this last year is branding. I mean,
So when you're like, okay, so you have this idea for this thing for however long, and you finally figure out, like, today's the day I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Did you already have access to all those resources to figure out how to actually do everything, or is this an after?
So I'd known about them.
Okay,
but I used that like month and a half before I dropped to kind of soak in as much as I could. And that's where I found a lot of my first vendors, because some of the vendors I used in the beginning, I don't use now. But yeah, I started to utilize it in that first month, and I was just soaking it all up because I was like, I jumped on social media that day. I created an Instagram account, posted coming soon. And mind you, I'm not from here. So I had all my friends from all over the United States, but I was like marketing to people here that were like, who the heck is this girl?
Who is this lady?
Yeah.
Okay. So had you already thought about like you've mentioned it a couple times, this like differentiator. Had you already thought about any of that kind of stuff? Like what made whatever this was going to be, whatever made that special? Or was that something you've kind of been tweaking and kind of learning along the way?
So I knew that my biggest goal was to help women find confidence because, one thing I had already worked in retail. So for so long I had heard like, I'm too old to wear those colors. I'm too old to wear jeans like that. Or, I only like to wear black or whatever it might be. Yeah. Okay. And so my goal was to help women find confidence in whatever the heck they wanted to wear. And so that was my goal. That was it. I'm going to help women find confidence. And I think in the last couple of years, it's just grown into so much more. Like I said earlier, community over competition. And I've had to grow as a person. And so now my goal is, yes, helping women find confidence, but also giving women a place to come and just be themselves. And it's kind of funny because I think I've attracted a lot of moms, and a lot of young girls are like, oh, she only sells mom clothes, or whatever. It's not the case. But I've attracted this community of women who have appreciated that goal.
That's cool. So what was so the goal is to help women find confidence. Yeah. Was there anything like beyond the clothing, like, was there anything else that you were planning to do or that you wanted to do to help strive towards that goal? Does that make sense? Like
in the beginning, really, it was just like, okay, we're going to use clothes to help women find confidence. Okay. Like I want them to find their favorite outfit and walk into public and be like, I am the shit. And since then, it's become so much more than clothes. I feel like tomorrow I could have 3 shirts for sale and women would show up just because they enjoy the environment. I think an experience is so much more important than the product you're selling and delivering that experience. So whether it be events or, conversations, whatever it might be, it's the experience.
So how do you create that experience? Like, what is your thought process, or what goes into creating that experience for you? Like, what do you think it is that you're doing that is driving that mission?
Honestly, creating the experience. One, I've utilized the pop-ups because selling online is great. And, I can talk to everybody through Facebook, but face-to-face meeting your customers, nothing beats it.
Yeah.
And I think, so having these pop-ups where women can come, I've done just ladies' nights out. People bring their kids and it's fun. And so it's just the energy you bring.
Mhm.
And I don't even know if I could put that into words. It's the energy.
Yeah. Well, and you're doing more than just selling online.
Oh, yeah.
Like you've got, like you said, pop-up events, you're doing these girls' nights out. Like those are all things that, I don't know, I'm not shopping for women's clothing, but
Right.
it doesn't feel like a common thing.
Well, like wine and shopping and talking and also getting to know your customers.
Mhm.
I mean, my customers can purchase the wrong size and immediately most of them are regulars and I can like text them personally and be like, hey, it's Maria from Fussy. Did you mean to buy this size? And they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for letting me know. Or, oh yeah, I did. Whatever it might be. Or like, it's a gift for somebody, but they're
cool.
like, thank you so much for recognizing that. And I think that's the biggest thing. And personalizing things. So one thing I do is I have handwritten thank you notes. I think all these really cute cards that other people are doing that they put in purchases are cute, but taking time to handwrite a card and put a personal message to that customer, whether they be a new customer or a regular, I want them to know how appreciative I am, but also this is the heart of my business. Like tomorrow, if you didn't buy clothes from me, I'm still going to give you a hug on the street because you mean that much to me. Like,
so as you grow, is there any concern or like, have you thought about how you can continue to provide that experience as you're growing? Because that's going like handwritten notes becomes way more difficult. Or like
if you have
as an
100
example,
orders a day.
Yeah, or like any of those things. How have you thought through like how you can continue to create that experience?
So, I mean, obviously I've told you I'm a fly by the seat of my pants gal. So when things come up, I kind of like when things arise, I take care of it.
Yeah.
But I have thought, in the future, things are going to look a little different. And I think even with the storefront, I'm going to be shopping in person with a lot of these girls instead of online. So, how I'm going to incorporate those notes or whatever it might be. But I think too, that just goes into delivering an experience. So, in the future, hopefully I'm filling over 100 orders a day, let's hope. But the reality is if we get to that point, I think just creating that culture of women that support that brand is going to be what kind of drives me through that.
Yeah. And with you like being hands-on and being really with, like spending the time with the customers, you know what will kind of hit with them.
Well, I think in any business, and one thing I've learned, let your customers drive your business. My customers dictate what direction I go. And I've heard this from several other boutique owners when I listen to podcasts and stuff. Allowing your customers to dictate your business, it's hard, but I mean, essentially you're doing this for them, right? So, you're doing it to make money, but without these people, your dream is not flourishing. So, utilizing your customers. I mean, I use them often to say, hey girls, do we like this or this? Or, what do you want to see coming forward or whatever it might be, allowing your customers to have that part in your business.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. It's super easy to think like, oh, I've got this great idea.
No.
This is what it is. They're going to love it. It's like nobody wants it.
There's things that I'm like,
Sure,
oh my
great,
gosh, I love this. And I buy it and nobody buys it. And I'm like, okay, everyone else hates my style. What am I even doing?
Yeah. Okay. So you've got, at what point did you decide, okay, well, actually, before I get there, did you always want to get into brick and mortar? Or were you good with online?
Okay, so I would originally have loved to do brick and mortar from the gate, because I love the idea of the experience of a storefront. Like I said, I would walk into those boutiques and I love the feeling, but logically, it just was not the right move. I mean, the overhead and again, I wasn't from here, so I didn't have a customer following. If I could give anyone advice, I would say that the most important thing you can do is build your following, build your online presence, and then decide if you want to do brick and mortar. My belly is growling. I'm so sorry. But the most important thing you can do is growing that following. So I would not change a thing. I'm really excited to go to brick and mortar, and it's going to be a completely different ballgame from what I hear. But I think having my online store was a game changer for me. So no, it was, I think originally, and it worked out being a mom. I mean, I have had the best time being home with my daughter, and she'll be going to kindergarten next year. So that'll be kind of cool.
Seems
We
to be a
can
common
start
thread.
together. Right.
It's exactly the same as what Summer said.
Yes.
So
And
it's funny.
I mean, selfishly, to be perfectly honest, I'm going to miss spending as much time as I have with her now, but I am so excited for this next chapter.
Okay, so you wanted that, didn't really plan on it though. Okay, so let's go back to because this keeps coming up, this growing your following. How did you know that was going to be super important at the beginning?
I mean, I knew having customers was important.
Yeah.
But no, I knew nothing about that, to be honest. I have learned as we've gone. I just attended a pop-up actually, and they laughed because my girls were there before the pop-up, and it was only a couple girls. It's not like what usually shows up. And she was like, "You have like a cult-like following." And I was like, honestly, yeah. And she's like, "These are your groupies." And I'm like, 100%. And I guess like I wanted that, like I wanted that girl gang mentality. But I didn't know how to make that happen.
So
it just kind of organically produced. Yeah.
So how have you done that then? So like you super active on social media.
Yeah,
like,
which I hate social media.
Same.
It's the demise of my existence right now.
It's so difficult.
And
but
it's yeah.
I don't love it, but I know it's a necessary I love scrolling. I hate having to manage the posting of everything.
And honestly, it is such, I hate to complain about it because it is such an advantage to business owners now, and it's free marketing.
Yeah.
But it's exhausting.
Yeah. Okay, so was that is that kind of your main the main way you've been able to do that?
Oh, 100%. Without social media, my business would be nothing. I even have noticed that like if I'm not keeping up with social media like I should be, things are not selling because people like to scroll. So yes, social media was my gate to everybody because I knew no one. And I mean, Facebook was great because you can invite people to like your page, people share things. Instagram is a whole nother beast that I'm still learning. I mean, you have to add people to try to get them to follow you. It's very hard.
Yeah.
So yes, I utilize social media, and that's what I do for my pop-ups and stuff. It's kind of how I get the word out. But I've also recently got into text marketing.
Okay.
And emails. So, which is a game changer, and it's something that I'm learning. Again, always researching, and this is something that keeps coming up, and it's really common that people are just preaching like, hey, this is the next thing. Like with the algorithms and stuff, it's kind of a way to eliminate your load on social media but still marketing your business.
Yeah. Did you use any paid or just
So in the beginning I used paid for my Facebook, and it was booming, and then Facebook locked me out, and they wanted me to
oh no.
They wanted me to verify my identity. So here I am downloading my driver's license on Facebook, and they still won't let me in. So everything I do now is organic.
You're not the first person I've heard deal with that, actually.
So here I am. I'm just organically trying to utilize Facebook, and some days it works and some days it doesn't.
Okay, well, that's lovely.
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Mind you, I have 2 business accounts on Facebook, so it's harder. But it's honestly, I think that doing it that way has taught me so much more.
Okay, so you're moving into brick and mortar. How did that come up? When did you figure out that this was something that was viable to go to brick and mortar?
Well, we purchased a rental property that has a retail space, and originally I was like, we were like, okay, we'll put someone else in there, kind of like offset that, get that going. And we had a huge life change in November, and I just finally looked at my husband and I was like, you're going to hate me. I need you to kick Deb out. And he was like, and he didn't have a lease with her. And he was like, it was this little old lady. Sorry, Deb. She's wonderful. And he was like,
bye, Deb.
Yeah. He was like, okay. And she was like, oh, Mr. Doug, it's okay. I'm so excited for your wife. Meanwhile, she just put all these updates into this. So now my husband's mad because like we're in the hole. Like he's like, now I got to pay Deb back. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was November, and I was like, we're going to do it. So, yeah, we kicked Deb out. And thank God she wasn't in there, like, packed in yet. And I was like, we're going to do this. So I went in and started remodeling. And I had been staining. There's like a closet that I was turning into a fitting room. I'd been staining, and I put all the rags in a bag, and I left for the night, and the building actually caught on fire.
Okay.
So I feel like that was karma, to be honest.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by the City of Washington, Citywide Development Corporation. If you're a small business in Washington and you need another set of eyes on your situation, or you need help growing, you're not sure what's going on with the business, you can't figure out how to get out of the current struggles you're going through, you're just looking for ways to become a little bit more efficient, anything else like that, or if you don't know where to go next, you don't know who to find to fix whatever the problem is, reach out. The WCDC is a free resource. We're here to help. The links are down below. Reach out. Like I said, it's a free resource. Now back to the episode. Building burns down.
Okay, so
building burns down. That's crazy.
So I wake up in the morning, and I had heard my husband's phone ringing, and I thought it was his alarm. Like, I was like, okay, no biggie, whatever. And so he comes back home because he left. I thought he just got up for work, and he's like, hey, are you awake? And I'm like laying there watching the news, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, no, are you awake? And I was like, yes. And he's like, can you hear me? And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, yes, I can hear you. And he's like, your boutique caught fire last night. And I'm like, oh my God, well, we have renters. And I start panicking. I'm like, is everyone okay? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, what happened? I'm like, was it those dang space heaters? Like, I just knew. And he was like, I think it was the rags. And I'm like, the rags? Okay, well, moral of the story is spontaneous combustion is a real thing. The rags, the stain on the rags, and with all the sawdust and the fumes from the paint and the stain, the rags caught fire. So luckily it was on one side of the building, and the smoke had just gone up to our renters and nothing else. The storefront was a complete loss. We've had to completely renovate the whole thing down to the studs. It was, and I'm like, at this point, I'm like, oh my God, I was the last one in there. I was staining. I'm like, am I going to jail? And he's like, you're not going to jail, but they do have to interview you. And I'm like, okay. So I go in, and, we live in Claysville, and the fire chief's like, it's okay. And the fire marshal was wonderful. And he was like, just tell me what happened. I'm like, I was staining and I left the rags. And he's like, it's okay. Like, and I'm like, okay. And I mean, I'm like panicked. Okay. And I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God. And then I'm thinking, like, this is my karma for kicking Deb out. And luckily, they took care of our renters. We had everyone come in and check the electrical and everything was good. So they got to go back in, which was my biggest concern. Like, did I just ruin someone's life, basically? And so we were good. And I'm thinking, like, okay, what is happening in my life? Because like I said, we had a big life change in November, and then this had happened, and I was like trying to process everything going on. And I'm like, all right. So thank God we had insurance, and we've, now we're in the process of renovating it. So a contractor is, because I'm not allowed to go down there anymore, I don't think.
Okay. That is why. So
Yes.
You just throw some rags in a bag, and
well,
that's
mind
the
you,
end.
I took shop classes, so like I should have known better. So now I have like told everybody, okay, and my husband has actually received texts, like, hey, thank your wife, I bought a staining bucket, like where you put your rags in with a lid. But yeah, moral of the story, if you are staining anything, get a staining bucket and put your rags in water. Do not ever. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now I know.
Yeah. I'm just out here changing lives.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's crazy. So that is a little bit of a setback on the the storefront.
Well, it was like a setback on the storefront, setback mentally. Like it was just like, what is life? Again, sorry, Deb. Like, yeah.
Huh. Okay. Okay. So reset on the storefront.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So now you've got like, okay, so let's take a little bit of a step back though. How did you know that you were ready to do a storefront?
Again, fly by the seat of my pants. I don't know if it was jealousy because Deb was going in my storefront, but literally I was just like, okay, I'm ready for that next step. Pop-ups have been going great, but people are begging to have a place to try things on. I mean, I had people coming to my house to try things on weekly. Like they just pop in, try them on in my bathroom, and it was cool. But it was like, okay, it's time. Like either we need to do something in our basement that's like a small walk-in store, but we had a retail space. So it was kind of like a no-brainer. Like, why aren't we utilizing this?
Yeah.
And I just knew my business was ready for a next step. Ideally, my goal was to have, I wanted a mobile trailer so I could go to these pop-ups and not have to, unload all my shit and carry racks in. And I'm, packing clothes in. I tie them in garbage bags so they don't get dirty. I mean, it's a whole process.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, ideally by year 3, I would like to have a trailer. And now here we are having a brick and mortar instead. So.
Okay. Okay, so the planning of the brick and mortar, you've mentioned several times the experience of the boutiques that you've been in that you love.
Yeah.
How are you approaching like the creation of that experience?
So one thing, it's been very hard, like staying unique. So I love what all of these boutiques look like, but I need to put my personal touch on it. So, we have Pinterest and all these things, but I don't want a cookie cutter of what everything else I've seen. And so kind of taking ideas from even things that I remember that I loved about other places, and putting that into play. Obviously, a lot of pink. We're staying with the Western rustic vibe, but kind of like make it glam, Western, make it glam.
Okay.
So I'm really excited. The design, I call myself the design team, my contractor. Shout out to Bruce with Rescom. If anybody needs contractor, 10 out of 10 recommend. But I joke, I'm like design team meeting, and I'll be like, Doug, text Bruce this. So I have it all in my head. My husband's like, I don't know how you do that. I can't visualize any of this. But I mean, I already have wallpaper up in my head. So we're there. So that's been a thing. And slowly, like if I see an idea I like, kind of putting a personal spin on it and just making notes. So yeah.
Okay. So how is your what other kinds of changes like, okay, so obviously now you've got a storefront. You guys own the building, so that is helpful.
Yeah.
What else do you have like operationally? How is everything going to change now that you're not just online? Like what are the other things? Obviously now you got people coming in, you've got hours to worry about.
Yeah.
You've got all these things. What are some of the biggest things that are coming up? They're like, oh shit, this is going to be way different now.
Everything. So I'm like, every day I'm stressing myself out with like, oh shit, how am I going to do this? So for the summer, because it's my daughter's last summer before she gets kindergarten, first off, we love to explore. Like we go to the lake, I spend the day laying by the pool with my best friend, whatever it might be. My husband and I like to take weekend trips with our kid. And so recognizing that life is totally going to shift in that regard. I'm going to, because I'm a newer business, kind of use that to my advantage. And this summer, I'm actually going to be posting, because I utilize social media, be posting my store hours for the week every week. Okay. So kind of like a restaurant would do their specials for the week. Like, hey, this week I'm going to be in the store these days. And but if you want to come in for an appointment, awesome, just shoot me a message. And I know that that's going to hurt in the beginning and I won't be utilizing that space as much as I should. But again, I have a 4-year-old daughter, so navigating that as a mom, and I would love to totally go boss bitch on this and be in there 24/7. That's not reality for my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to, and hiring, I think I've made myself such a big part of this business. I mean, I'm the face of the business. And so I think right now hiring summer help and stuff, that scares me. And I think any business owner goes through that, like kind of like, here's the reins. But I think too, my customer base, I don't know if they're ready for that.
Okay. So well, you also have, like online isn't going away, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
So you'll also have that'll kind of like, if you can't stop in, then
yeah. And to be honest,
this,
so a lot of boutiques, because they've grown they're so big now, they'll have like an online store and then things in their storefront are separate. Because I'm so small scale, everything's going to be together now. So anything that's in store is online.
Okay.
And so that'll be really helpful too. And I'm going to keep it that way until I kind of outgrow that, and we'll navigate that situation when we get there.
Yeah. Okay. So that's going to be, man, that's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Okay. So you've got the hours situation. How, so every week you're going to be posting the hours.
Yes.
That again, you've got online, so it doesn't really matter. Like,
right. And I think so for me, I think because I have such a loyal following, and having those personal relationships with my customers, like I said, hey, if you have an event coming up and you need an appointment this week, or your kids go into summer camp and you have a day and you want to come shop, totally cool with that. I mean, you set appointments to get your hair done. You set appointments to get your nails done. So I'm cool with that. Like, hey, open appointment, or, you know, there's a day that I'm working down there and you see them open, pop in. But the reality is, I had to figure out a way to still be able to be a mom and a business owner. So this summer, that's how we're going to navigate it. Going into the fall is when I think I'm going to put my big girl pants on and we're going to have set business hours. And I think I'll be more comfortable navigating what staffing will look like then.
When you guys bought that property, did you, like, had you thought about what, okay, so you buy that or you're looking for properties. Did you think that you were going to have a space in that? And did that play into what you were looking at? Or was this just like an available thing that you...
No. So I kind of let my husband take the reins on the rental property. This has been his dream to get into rentals and deal with that. He actually, I didn't really have a big part in it. And usually we do pretty much obviously everything together. And it was kind of like, okay, you take the lead. Like if you feel like this is a good space. And ideally, like I said, financially, I was just kind of like, okay, we can rent that space out, have that income. That's great. Until I realized like my business needed a next step and I needed to figure out what that was. And then, like I said, huge life change in November. And it was like, okay, we've got to do something. And I was like, we're ready for that next step.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. And then, okay, so hiring, that's going to wait a little bit. What are some of the other things that you're running into right now that you're either not worried about, but thinking about pretty heavily as, I mean, you're not that far out from opening.
So one thing is I'm trying to navigate right now, having inventory for the online store, holding back new arrivals for this grand opening, because I mean, having a storefront, I have a lot of people that shop with me every drop. So making sure that I have new arrivals for them. I do have, you know, I have customers that don't shop with me all the time. So they'll have pieces that are like, oh, I saw this on the online store, but also keeping that momentum, because I think now that people know that I'm opening an online store too, they're like, well, I'm just going to wait till I can try that on. So I'm navigating all these turning wheels, and then also, I'm so used to doing pop-ups. I've turned down a lot of pop-ups because I'm scaling back until I can come forward. So it has been, my business is in a huge transition, and it has been very stressful for me.
Okay. Does the amount of like everything that you're keeping on hand, is that going substantially up, or like how is that?
So everything I'm keeping on hand, I have a lot of things that, I mean, and I think anyone can relate to this. I'm holding back so much right now. So I have a lot of money sitting, waiting for this grand opening.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't something that I could start in December. I mean, I was waiting for spring arrivals and summer arrivals and all of these things. So having to navigate that financially as a business owner. Okay, what is my budget for this week? And, you know, what am I looking for? What is my theme going to be? But also, I'm having to think even further into the summer. So shopping for that, that is my biggest obstacle right now, is holding things back, and then, but also still trying to please my customer base presently.
Yeah. Do you normally operate in, you've mentioned the drops a couple times. Is it a like limited drops that you've done, or is there always...
So I always do drops. so basically what a drop is, it's my online drop. So this week's collection of what I've, what I have for you. And it's the hottest new arrivals. This is what's in. This is what's trending. Spring's coming. And so the drops are cool. I think in the beginning, the drops created this like competitiveness in all my customers. And it was like cutthroat. Like they were getting online and sizes were selling out like this. And when I first started, I had one size run of everything. Well, there's some things that I have a size run of 10 right now, and I refuse to go above 10. Like, sorry, ladies, because that's boutique style, and that's one thing I've had to kind of like focus on. It's that controlling sales. And that's that fine line. Am I controlling sales right now? And I have to be careful with that. But also focusing on, like I said, the boutique style. So focusing on, I don't want to sell 20 of these shirts because then everyone's going to have the same shirt. And that's part of the uniqueness of what I do. But also then I got people yelling at me like, you've sold out of my size. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but be quicker. I don't know. I'm sorry. These girls are crazy. I mean, and so that's my drops. I drop them online, say like, I'll start advertising and be like, hey, next Friday at 7:00, I'm dropping. And it's gotten to the point my site is glitching now at 7:00 on Friday. And people are texting me like, my cart just disappeared. And I'm like, I don't know. Contact Shopify.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Okay. So how do you think that's going to change when you have a storefront? Will you do limited like online drops or?
So to be honest, everything goes in the store will also be online. And I don't know how I'm going to navigate that yet. I think it'll come to me. I'm hoping. I've started to think about that. Like, are we going to still do drops? Am I going to give my online customers first, like kind of first grabs, and then whatever's left will be in the store? But I don't know yet. I mean, when I figure it out, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to really hype up the storefront for a while.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of things are going to be in the storefront, and then whatever's kind of like hanging on, I'll throw it on the online store just because I want to get people in the door. And as much as I want to grow my online business, my main focus right now is I love the community I live in. Obviously we're really passionate about growing businesses in Washington County. And so I think pushing that storefront and getting people in the door and providing that experience in the end will benefit my online store.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it doesn't have to be black or white either.
No.
Like you can do, maybe this month you're just doing in-store releases and then, or like 1 in every 4 is an online only. The rest of them are in-store. Like there's a bunch of different ways you can manage that so that the people that don't live locally can still get in on that community and don't feel left out. And then you can continue to build that because the more you build that, the quicker the in-store, like that becomes more sustainable.
Yep.
Okay, that will be
interesting.
That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun to deal with.
Talk to me next year this time.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got all of these things that are changing. How in the world, like planning for, so this got set back by quite some time.
Yeah.
How are you planning, like, okay, you're holding some things back. You're not selling as much because you're not putting out as much. Like, how are you just figuring all that out as like, what has to happen? You know you need to be doing these things. But like you said, financially for the business, that is a lot of figuring out to happen. How are you thinking about like that's a lot going on.
Lists. Like my whole life is a list. I have like 15 different lists. And everything goes onto a list. And then, but honestly, some things are day by day. I think one thing about being a business owner is you have to be able to adapt quickly. So, on the pivot, what am I going to do here? What is working and what is not?
Yeah.
I'm really lucky that I have vendors that a lot of them have like weekly drops and things like that. Some do not. So a lot of the things I'm buying in are from vendors that, I'm shopping way ahead. It's being on a pivot. It's being able to think quickly, reading your customers. Like I said, this last drop wasn't one of my best. but it wasn't terrible. And just like reading into my customers, like I said, I think a lot of it is people are waiting for this online store. Everybody loves an event. I didn't predict my last pop-up would have as many women as it did. And I think it's just that hype and people want experience. And
Are most of your customers local?
yes. And I have a lot of customers online that are from all over because I've lived all over.
Yeah.
But yes, most of my girls are local.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, that's a weird, you're in a very interesting situation.
Yeah.
When was your last pop-up?
So my last pop-up was in February at Red Fox Winery. Awesome event venue. Any local vendors that are looking to grow their business, they don't charge you. So they love to have you out because it helps them. Spot? It's really cool. Yeah.
Do you plan on doing any more in between, like before the opening?
No, so that's what's killing me right now. I actually just turned down my biggest event that I did last year was Ag Days, and I said I couldn't do it this year because I just cannot navigate that. And I think financially as a business owner, you have to think smart right now. I'm investing a ton into this storefront. So that's kind of where my focus is. So kind of making that decision as a business owner and sacrificing right now. I know it'll be worth it in the end, but it's hard making those decisions.
Oh yeah. Okay. So May is the anticipated date. Do you have anything significant, like in the planning phase or as you're approaching that? It sounds like you kind of have a lot of it at least kind of figured out.
Yeah.
Are there any like major obstacles still to opening there? Like obviously I'm sure you're like you said, you're still you've got to redo.
So they're remodeling and they're doing a wonderful job. And then as soon as they're finished, we're going in with putting all of our fixtures in. My husband's building built-in fixtures. Obviously getting wallpaper up and things like that. And I think it'll all come together. But I mean, I don't at this moment have any obstacles. I'm sure so many will arise.
Yeah.
One thing I'm worried about is the size of the space. I know how my gals like to shop and they all show up at one time. And so it's going to be big and navigating like, okay, what is that going to look like? Do we need to have 2 registers? So the anticipation of what do we need? But I mean, it comes to you. And I think as a business owner, like I said, pivot. So I feel like I have everything pretty planned out, lists. My biggest thing right now is getting this remodel done, getting things set up, and then I'll know kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay. So are there any, you've got, I think you mentioned Shopify. I think I saw it on your site too. Yep. So you're using that. How are you going to, everything's the same in store, at least the plan right now. Everything's in store and online. How are you, do you know how you're going to be linking, like to manage all of your inventory? Do you know how that's all going to work yet or?
Oh, so Shopify makes that really easy. You can it's all linked right there on your site and you can put like if this is available in store only, like on your POS, or if it's available on both online.
Are you using their in-store POS?
Yep.
Okay.
And I've had nothing but success with it. I think their rates are a little higher, but honestly, it's worth it for me.
Yeah.
They track inventory great. I've maybe had 1 or 2 issues ever. And
I know their online system's solid.
Yeah.
I haven't used their in-store.
I utilize their POS, and it's been great.
Okay. That's good to know.
And it links to your phone. You can link it to an iPad, so it's really, really nice. You can, you do your barcodes and everything, so you can scan right in. Makes it so easy.
That's nice. Okay. Is there anything else as you're approaching that is like a, man, you've got so much going on. Like that is such a big transition. Or not transition because you're doing both still.
Yeah.
Or you will be doing both. So,
like just in addition to a business, I think going from online to brick and mortar, the hardest part for me is going to be still utilizing my online store like I should. And like people out of state expect me to, that'll be the hardest thing. And I'll navigate that as it comes. I think with anything, you can anticipate how it's going to go, but you never really know until it's in motion.
Yeah. Well, and keeping that store fresh. Yeah, I mean,
and I think that's something else with being going to brick and mortar. The hardest thing for me is going to be seasons. Navigating that in store instead of just online. There's just so much in day to day that changes rather than online. I can kind of market like, okay, we're going into summer. Well, in store, we have Memorial Day, 4th of July, whatever it might be. I think it'll be really good to build that those experiences in store, but it's going to require a lot more of me as a business owner.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm leveling up in a way. I've really made my face. I made myself the face of this business, which is great. But I feel like now it's kind of like that next level. Like, okay, it's time to shine, lady. Like, good luck. I think a storefront, the way I'm starting, just kind of like my online store, I started slow and I built it. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I see so many other business owners doing is we're going to jump all in and we're just going to run until this train runs out. Fast fashion has been a huge thing with that. Everybody wants to sell this one brand because it's so hot right now. And I don't do that. Like, I ride it out. So I'm not jumping on the bandwagon of what everyone else is selling and whatever. So focusing on the fact that this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. I'm not going to have it all figured out in the beginning, but I'm going to figure it out as we go.
Yeah. Yep. And that's, I mean, like you've said it a couple times, like you can plan for a lot of these things, but it's probably going to go a little bit, like plan enough. And then just figure it out, like be adaptable. That's the biggest thing. Like, don't get too bought into any of the decisions that you've made because they might not be right.
100%. And I think even through like just in the last few months talking things out loud or whatever to my husband, recognizing like, you know what, I don't think that's going to work like it did. Or, I thought I was for sure going to have set hours all summer. And the closer we got, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, is my kid going to be a slave to my business? Yeah. Happy summer. You get to go to work with dad. And then you get to go to work with mom, Woo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be, how are you, okay, so when you're thinking about those hours, how are you, like, it's going to be week by week, but how are you determining what those hours are going to be? Like,
again, polling my customers, like, hey, what days are you most likely to come in and shop with me? If I'm having a drop, like I'm going to have a ton of new arrivals this week. So I'm dropping those on Wednesday. I'm definitely going to be in there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I mean, because I want everybody to come in and try them on. So focusing on those things, what we've got going on weekly, and then just navigating around it. I mean, I think letting your customers not control your business, but have an opinion on your business. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, hey, ladies, I need your help. What do y'all want from me?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Which I think is where a lot of business owners too go wrong. Like, and I think, like I said earlier, I can pick a shirt out and nobody's going to buy it because it was my style. So remembering that it's not just you, it's everybody else. Yeah. Like you are here to serve a purpose, but your purpose is for everybody else.
Yeah. Okay, so do you think that with this storefront, do you think it, I mean, it seems pretty clear, but the goal of the business is still the same?
Oh, 100%. I think now more than ever, now that I've created this community of women, for me, my goal is if you're going to walk through the doors of this store, I want you to leave feeling yourself. I mean, I want you to leave and if you walked in with any ounce of doubt, you're walking out and that's gone. Whether it be you bought clothes or you didn't. My biggest thing is making sure that women, one, none of us are the same. I sell women's clothing. I sell women's sizing. I'm not advertising to the teenage girl, but I do have extra smalls in here because if you want to rock my clothes, rock them. We go extra small to 3X for a reason. I want women to feel good about themselves. I want them to feel cute. I know that I feel my best when I'm dressed up. There's been comments made especially now that I'm so present on social media and stuff, well, you're always so dressed up. Well, you're so this. I feel good like that. That's why I do it. I don't do it because I feel the pressure to. I'm also a face of my business. So if I'm constantly walking around in sweatpants, and whatever, they're going to be like, she's not even wearing what she's selling.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is letting women know it's okay to feel yourself. There's nothing wrong with being confident. I actually was just getting my hair done a few weeks ago, and we were talking about, like, it's 2023, like, being a mean girl's out. Like, we're grown-ass women. Act like it. And, how my hairdresser was saying, she was like, you, like, if I'm dressed like this, I'm not dressed up enough. But then I could be overdressed, and I have these women that are saying I'm too much. And I find that such a common theme now. And it's like breaking that culture. Like, no, be whoever the fuck you want to be. Wear whatever the fuck you want to wear. If, you want to walk around in a bright pink shirt with cheetah, do it. There's no age limit. There's no size limit. There's nothing. Like, those are made up rules. And we're not here for it. That is my mission. Like, feel yourself. If you want to wear all black, wear all black. Like, I love it. If you want to wear fuchsia pink every day, all day, do it. What's your color? Let's find it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, is there anything?
I mean, you want to come in and have a coffee? Come in and have a coffee. I don't care. But, like, you don't have to buy a damn thing. If you just need me to tell you you're beautiful today, come on in.
That's the mission.
That's the mission.
That's the goal of it. So, okay, we've covered a lot of the things that I had here. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important to cover from your side? Honestly,
the only thing I would say is being a business owner, being a mom. I think that is the hardest struggle I faced through all of this. I mean, growing a community of women, picking out cute clothes, that's my jam, But I think finding that balance, I'm still working on it. I don't have the answer. There's nights that my kid's like, Mom, Mom, Mom. And I'm like, and she's like, Mom. And I'm like, go watch a show. And I get done and I'm like, was it worth it? And all I can think is that I am being the best woman as an example to her. I want her to grow to be a woman where you can be a mom and be whoever you want to be, or you don't have to be a mom and you can be whoever you want to be. But showing her that there are no limits is so important. And I think my husband and I both show her that, which is really important. We show her what being a team is, But that is my biggest struggle, is navigating being a mom and a business owner.
When you kind of mentioned it earlier, but the with the storefront, that's going to take even more time. Are you, as you're approaching that, I mean, you're posting your hours weekly, so you're already considering, so you're already considering that. But are you going to be like, are you going to think about it pretty deliberately of like, okay, these are going to be family days and these are not? Like, how are you thinking through that
so
that
luckily,
you don't get too...
my husband is off every Sunday, Monday. We're closed Sunday, Mondays. And so that's something we talked about. Like, we're going to keep that. We're closed Sunday, Mondays, both businesses, because those are our family days. And making that a point, I think, too, we're actually going to be turning the room behind my boutique into my warehouse for now. And so moving out of my basement, because it is glorious, moving out of the basement and putting it in there, removing work from our home. So I am now at work and I am now at home, because I think, we talked about social media. It's so demanding. And so trying to navigate that and being with my child and being present, I think it's going to help to have work at work now. There's going to be time to run my online store while I'm there. And so I think it's going to give that relationship the break it's been needing from, my daughter is a little ride or die. She has her own line. I'm fussy now. She has kids and she loves it. Like, she is like, I have my own line. And I'm like, yeah, she made a video the other day and was like, Mom, let me make a video. And she was like, hi, everyone, I'm getting my own line and I love you. And I'm like, yes. But So showing her that, but like now, so I've shown her now you can be whatever you want to be, but now I'm like, okay, but also I need to show you that it's okay to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is going to really help with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and just making sure, like, sticking to it as much as you need to.
Yeah.
Like, sticking to because I'm sure there's going to be times on those Sundays and Mondays where it's like you're getting online orders because that's when people are off, or you're getting all those things, and I'm sure that transition is going to be not well. Do you work on those days now?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
If I get an
so-
online order, I feel like I'm like, I
Mhm.
gotta, I mean, that's one thing that why people shop me. I'm fast
Uh-huh.
shipping. Well, I mean, so fast that 5 minutes later I'm filling an order because I'm like neurotic. I'm like, I
Uh-huh.
gotta fill that order and get it out Monday morning. Also recognizing that that is long term, that you
Mhm.
cannot hold that.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn, like, it might take me 1 or 2 days to fill an order, but you're still getting your order within, I mean, way fast.
Yeah.
We are freaky fast. But so that's what I'm trying to focus on. And I think it'll be good, like I said, to have that space. Okay, this is work, this is home. And like you said, those days being able to take off.
Are you okay? So this is something that I've had. I am the same way in that, like, when we take trips, I've been so bad in the past about having all of my notifications on and all the things, and then you just end up working the whole time.
Mhm.
Um, do you have a do you know how you're going to make that separation? I'm sure the first couple weeks when you're like, okay, now we're not doing this anymore. Like Monday or Sunday, Monday, we're off.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you're thinking through of like, okay, here's how I can make that separation?
Well, I
Or-
did. So social media, the past month has just been a beast. I mean, I have been posting, and one day, I'm getting 1,000 views on a story, and the next day I'm getting 60.
Mhm.
Well, I was like, okay, I have to step back from this because it's going to set me over the edge.
Mhm.
I don't understand the algorithms. Every day they're
Yep.
changing. And so I was like, I'm taking a break. And I didn't post for a week. And I posted and bam, everything was back. And I was like, okay, I kind of needed that to show me, like, yes, you need to be consistent on social media, but it doesn't have to always be in your face.
Mhm.
So I don't have to have 6 or 7 stories on my Instagram a day. I can be present on social media, but with a purpose.
Mhm.
So I think I was getting caught up in the, like, constant circle of social media and
Mhm.
realizing that, like, okay, pause. What was my purpose? Because, I'm telling my kid, like, hold on, I can't talk right now because I'm doing this, but really why?
Yeah.
And so that's, I'm learning that I need to have a purpose with social media, and it's a great tool, but I feel like the competitiveness in me is like, okay, we
Mhm.
got to keep going and keep going, but really why?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be good in that regard to be able to separate, like, okay, these are my days off, and having that, the storefront, I think will also alleviate that online presence a little bit.
Mhm. Okay. And there's a couple sites that I shop at regularly that um it's like clearly labeled on their site where it's like if you place an order on the weekend, we're not here.
Right.
Everything will be handled. We have super fast shipping. Same way. It's like we guarantee 2 day. I'm not saying this is your
Right.
case, but like in their case, we have 2 day shipping. We don't work on the weekend though. If you order something on the weekend, it will be handled on Monday, but we're not getting back to you today.
Right.
Nobody's here.
And I think too, my customers, I've kind of spoiled them a little bit, and
Mhm.
they have a lot of personal connection to me, and they can reach out whenever, which I love. Nobody stop.
Yeah.
But also knowing that just because someone sent a message, I don't have to respond right now.
Mhm.
And I think even outside of business, somebody texts you, automatically you feel like you have to respond. You don't.
Mhm.
That's the great thing about a text message. It'll still be there.
Yeah.
And so taking time to put my phone down
Mhm.
and realizing that if someone can't get in touch with me, it's okay. That is something I'm learning as a business owner, as a wife, as a mom.
Mhm.
It's okay to not respond right away. And I think that people understand it. I just automatically assume that they're going to hate me if I don't respond.
Yeah. One of the things that's helped me with that is creating these like custom do not disturb features on my phone. So
yes, I've heard of these.
like for vacation, actually the last time we took a trip, it was like, okay, well, the first day we left, I got an email. We were like about to get on the plane. I got an email from a customer. I was like, oh, and it was one of the things where it was like, oh, I have to manage this or I have to do this right now. And immediately I was like, I'm not doing this trip. So went in, created I am getting no notifications from all of these apps. These are the apps that I don't want to hear from for this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Do not disturb is just on for these things. And then I don't have to worry about it. Like, I'm not seeing the badges. I'm not seeing that I have this many new emails or whatever. And that helped a lot because now I'm not constantly opening my phone and seeing, oh, I have an email from this client or this client or this client. And you can do those things easily. I mean, if I don't know about Android, but I know on iPhone, like you can do it super simply. And it helps a lot if you're wired that way, where it's like, I see it, this needs handled immediately. Where it's like, hey, if it needed handled immediately, it doesn't. Like very rare cases, especially clothing or website stuff that could be urgent, but in most cases, it's not urgent.
No.
It's not urgent. Like nothing's going to burn down if
Watch out. Knock on wood. Yeah, and that's something I think just even as a mom, I'm trying to focus on the most. I think that is healthy for all my relationships. And even, there's been times where we're out with our friends and I'm having a drop and I'm just on my phone, and I look back on those moments and I'm like, why did I need to be studying these numbers? They weren't going to change. And so stepping out of business into mom mode, into friend mode, into wife mode, whatever it might be. And I think the storefront is going to alleviate some of that because I'm going to have more personal connections, in person, I mean.
Yeah. Just figuring out in that case, especially if you're trying to create that separation, just figuring out kind of what it is that sucks you in and then do your best to remove those things. Okay, you're looking at the posts. How do I make sure that I'm not going to do those things? Yep. And it sucks. It's very difficult at first because at least for me, that's the way my brain. If I see it or if I'm thinking about it, I'm just going to be thinking about that.
100%.
So that transition sucks, but
it'll be okay. So really excited. A lot of big things, a lot of big changes, and navigating those. And I think as business owners, one of the biggest things we struggle with is kind of handing over the reins. Hey, and so when I'm ready to hire and what that's going to look like, because let's be honest, I'm probably not going to have a ton of middle-aged women knocking on my door saying, hey, I want to work for you. And so accepting that, does my brand need to transition a little bit? Do I need to, navigate that kind of?
Yeah, that'll be, we'll worry about that when you get there. Okay. Anything else that we have not talked about?
I don't think.
Okay. Where can all of the humans find you and all of your things?
You can find me on Facebook at Fussy Revival, Instagram at Fussy Revival, and my website is fussy-revival.myshopify.com.
Cool. All of those will be linked down below.
And soon at 260 Main Street in Claysville.
Okay, that will also be down there. I'll include a little Google Maps link for it. Okay. If you have any suggestions for guests or if you have any topics you would like to see covered, shoot me an email at bradley@clearingthewaypodcast.com, or any of the other emails that are linked down below. If you found this or any other episode helpful, or if you liked it, if you enjoyed it, share it, leave a review, comment, do all those things. They're super helpful. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a guest.
This
was wonderful. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next week.